Hello there, this is Benny.
And this is Kyle.
And you're listening to a very special episode of The Doctor's Watcher.
The podcast where I watch entire seasons of Doctor Who and tell you all about them.
3 so far.
And I don't even know how many to go, 20-some at least.
And then it's a moving target because the longer this show takes to catch up, the more seasons they release. But I still think it's a pretty huge accomplishment to have done 3 already, because we've been doing this for years. We've done literally over 100 episodes.
This is the 130th episode of the podcast.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. Congratulations.
Indeed. Congratulations to us. And also to our listeners who've made it through 130 episodes.
Thank you for sticking with us, listeners. Don't forget to give us a rating and tell a friend. I wonder how many times I'm going to say that this episode, because I always feel like, man, we're wrapping up a season. If you've stuck with us this long, leave us a dang rating and tell a dang friend. Come on, y'all. If you like this show enough to actually listen to this stupid bullshit wrap-up episode where you don't even get to find out what happens in a new episode of Doctor Who. You just listen to us flapping our gums, telling our little jokes. Leave us a rating.
I feel like these wrap-up shows are basically our most self-indulgent episode. Because our usual promise to the listener is, 30 to 50 minutes of Doctor Who content every 2 weeks. And then here we're like, have a whole extra fucking episode on the off week when you don't even want to listen to us normally.
But that's what all the listeners are thinking. So, Kyle, Doctor Who Season 3. How'd you watch it?
It is a good question. I think this entire season was a mix of loose cannon and BritBox. I feel like very early on, I kind of toyed with the idea of listening to like the audiobook versions of some of the missing episodes. But I only did that like once or twice, and then I was like, I'll just watch the loose cannon reconstructions. It's fun to watch something.
Cool. And this one also had a cartoon in there. This was
that's true.
This season I had to scroll down to double check. But yeah, that was the first serial of the season. So let's not forget the Dravin and the Chumbleys and the guys who looked like huts with horns that I can't remember their names.
What were they called? Oh, the Rills.
Oh yeah. That sounds vaguely familiar.
Indeed. Well, before we get into it, what have you been up to?
Oh, Kyle. Well, all right, listeners. Before we started recording, I decided to tell Kyle about how my partner and I just got our house re-roofed, which was a whole adventure because we've got our cat Beans, who had to be moved out of the house. We ended up actually taking him into my office building, which has barely been used since the pandemic, and nobody's kind of returned. Well, a couple of people occasionally show up to the office, but most of the time it's just a poor office manager in there sitting there by himself. So he said I could bring in Beans. So we did, and my partner actually joined us. They don't work with me, but they were, like I said, no one else was in the office, so it's not like they were taking up someone's desk or something. So I told Kyle the whole story. I did not mean to make it that long. I told him like the 15-minute version, but y'all get the short version, listeners.
Indeed. But Beans survived the experience.
He did really well. Yeah, sweetie.
Yeah, he's now been in lifts. He's been to an office.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, listeners, that was me calling Beans a sweetie and not me calling Kyle sweetie. But you know what? If you all want to put it in your fanfics, I can't stop you. Yeah,
I don't think either of us would mind too much.
I'd probably read it. I might feel weird about it afterwards, but I think my curiosity at least would make me want to read it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I've been doing, the other thing I couldn't decide whether to say the other thing I've been up to or the other thing I've been doing. So I said the other thing I've been doing. I don't know. I don't even can't remember how I said it. Magic the Gathering has started releasing the story teasers for Bloomborough, the new set that they're going to do with all the cute animal people. So it's basically their Redwall, Wind in the Willows style set, and I've been reading those stories, and man, I've been looking forward to that for so long, and it's been so cute. It is adorable.
Nice.
I've been very much loving that, and I'm looking forward to the release of the actual set. They're still small and brave, but they're fighting to defend their home from big scary monster animals. Anyway, Kyle, enough about me. I can't seem to stop talking too long. I should learn to be a little more concise. Kyle, please tell me what's been going on with you.
The main thing that I've been doing in the past few days is, other than like house chores, and we just celebrated a holiday a couple of days ago. I got a long weekend from work as sort of a thank you for the recent hard work we've all been putting in on this project, blah, blah, blah. That's boring. So I've been spending some of that time playing this game that I've been hearing people talk about online called Balatro.
Huh, cool.
Which, yeah, is a lot of fun. I guess it's sort of a deck building game, but it's like based on poker. You're trying to build poker hands.
I think some of the folks were talking about it at that gaming night that you and I went to recently.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. You're trying to build poker hands, but then you get like jokers that have different effects. Like a joker that was serving me real well yesterday was one that makes it so you can play a straight or a flush with only 4 cards instead of 5.
Oh, nice.
So that makes it much easier to build.
It sounds like the sort of game that is fascinating to me to hear about, but I feel like I'd probably be pretty bad at it because it takes like strategy and you have to like get good at it. And with me, it tends to be like, oh, I tried this thing and I'm not instantly good at it. Well, never mind then. So I struggle with that. Maybe I should, work on myself, but right now I feel like that might not be. It's more a Kyle game than a Benny game. Let me put it that way.
That's fair. Turns out it's also a Kyle's partner game. I showed it to her, and it was kind of expecting to just show her like a few rounds, and then she'd be like, "Oh, that's cool," and then get on with her day. But she got like really into it and basically co-played the whole game with me, and so she's probably gonna like get it on her Switch too. And
oh, nice.
Yeah.
You know what else is a lot of fun, Kyle?
Talking about season 3 of Doctor Who?
Yes, sir.
Well, I have a number of things for us to talk about this season.
Indeed. Yes, we've shared notes already.
And the first segment I have actually is one that I did not brief you on in advance or anything.
Oh, no. Yeah, here I was talking about having already looked at the notes. I know or I thought I knew what sections we were going to be covering, the various discussion topics, and I'd written some notes for myself about them, or at least in my mind prepared things to talk about different amounts of prep for the different sections. But apparently, we were all deceived, for one category was created in secret.
So very early in this season, we had a few times where something that came up on the show was a good band name.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a bit that we kind of forgot about after a while. But I created a Battle of the Bands for us this season.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't actually make any music, so I just have like band names and the songs that they're going to perform and stuff.
I love it.
And yeah, then I'll tell you like who's competing against who in each round and what their songs are. I have to
pick who wins.
And then you can decide. Yeah, we can like either talk about it or you can just declare, or however we want to do it.
Nice. I love it. This is a lot of fun, Kyle.
In the first round, we're going to have four competitions, 4 face-offs. And the first of those 4 face-offs is the Dravens of Galaxy 4 versus the non-diegetic singer.
Excellent.
And the Dravens of Galaxy 4 are playing Chumb Thumping.
Chumb Thumping.
Which, of course, is a cover of the classic song by Chumbly Wumbly. And the non-diegetic singer is singing the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon.
Which is an actual song from Doctor Who. So how do you rate a made up novelty comedy song with hilarious names, hilarious Chumbly related references? How do you compare that to an actual song from the actual show? Now I'm kind of curious, like. So yeah, spoilers, but is the Last Chance Saloon, the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon, I should say, is that the only actual song from the Doctor Who that appears in this bracket? I can't remember there being any actual song, any
as
other
I look
songs.
over the bracket. I believe it is, yeah.
Okay, so is that reason enough to try to let it through, or is that reason... I don't know, I just found that... what is it? Chub Thumping by the Chumbly Wumblies. Was that it?
Yeah, Chumbly Wumbly. Yeah.
That is, it's wild. I think that's hilarious. I'm going to, it's so hard to vote against the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon, though. It was such a weird thing to have in that episode, and I very much enjoyed it. I'm having trouble, Colin. Help me out.
Well, how can I help you out without spoiling what's coming up ahead, depending on who makes it through? I will say there's a possibility, regardless of what happens, that we will hear the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon again.
Oh, excellent. All right, in that case, let's make it an all Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon sweep, and let's put that through. Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon advances.
Nice. Let me just take some notes on that.
Excellent.
Okay, so our next round, or our next face-off in the first round, is Horse of Destruction versus Johnny Ringo.
Oh, and very cool.
Horse of Destruction, they play an original song called The Other Three Horses of the Apocalypse.
Nice, nice.
And Johnny Ringo, you know, he gets up there and he says, "I'm Johnny Ringo." And he sits down at the drums and he plays Photograph of Me in Wild West Clothes.
Nice. I'm Johnny Ringo.
Photograph, by the way, is a Ringo Starr song.
Okay, thank you.
But this is Johnny Ringo's version, Photograph of Me in Wild West Clothes.
Thank you for the explanation. My partner actually loves Ringo Starr. It's their favorite Beatle.
Nice. I didn't know that.
I'm not as familiar with his work.
I happen to know that one of our listeners also is a big Ringo Starr fan, so shout out to Natalie.
Oh, cool. Yeah, listener Natalie. Yeah, I feel like Horse of Destruction is so good. I mean, that's just such a good metal name. I'm gonna have to go with that. I think just it's more my genre of music. It sounds like whatever
that's fair.
Johnny Ringo had going on there might be a little, a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll.
All right, so we have our next face-off, which is Stephen Regret and Dodo DuPont versus The Steel Sky.
Another good metal band.
Now, Stephen Regret and Dodo DuPont, of course, performed the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon. And The Steel Sky, like the host of this Battle of the Bands, announces that all of the Steel Sky's compositions are untitled. And the Steel Sky just takes the stage and basically spend the next 20 minutes playing the same chord over and over, just kind of gradually getting louder and then gradually getting softer again, and then walk off stage without saying anything.
Well, I already revealed my hand earlier. Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon sweep, and I'm going to have to go with that. As much as I enjoy the weirdness of whatever the Steel Sky was doing, maybe a little too experimental, a little too
That's
out there
fair
for me.
That's fair. All right, so Stephen Egret and Dodo DuPont will advance to the next round.
Yes.
And our final face-off in the first round is Priest of Death versus the Toymaker.
Oh man, so many of these are good metal bands. I mean, with good reason. Who doesn't love a good metal band, metal song?
So Priest of Death performs their original work, The Seven Awesome Sins.
Nice.
And the Toymaker winds up a music box and it plays for Elise.
All right, well, that's just too creepy, and I'm here for the seven awesome sins, so let's go with that.
Nice. Cool. So that was the first round. We
Excellent.
will come
Kyle,
back to the battle.
I love this.
Nice. So I thought we'd come back to the Battle of the Bands in a few minutes for round 2. And
all right. I see. You gotta let our listeners have some suspense.
And so in the meantime, the next thing on my list is our companion discussion, which
also was not in the notes. So
is that? Oh, okay. Well, that one was also intentionally not on the notes because what our companion discussion is going to be is how earlier in the season we talked about like kind of what qualifies somebody as a companion or not. Mm-hmm. And I want you to just like erase that from your brain and throw that out.
Okay.
And so what I'm going to do is just list various characters that the Doctor has interacted with this season. And we're just going to go based on vibes and tell me, like, just instinctually if you feel like they're a companion or not. Some of them are obvious. Some of them might be borderline or questionable.
This is hard because I feel like that definition is the one that I like truly believe in my soul. It's going to be hard not to just sort of follow along those lines. But then if I'm trying to get that out of my brain, then does that actually incentivize me to consider people opposite from what that rule would have gone? And then is it going to push me too far in that direction? This is the way my brain works, listeners. I overthink anything that you give me half a chance to overthink. Let's do it, Kyle. Let's just start. I
Nice.
don't even want to I don't even want to give myself any more chance to overthink it.
All right. So our first one is Steven.
Obviously a companion. Very companion.
Yeah, definitely.
Classic companion.
So much of a companion that he is often the person of action.
Yes, indeed. He's basically our replacement Ian. Mm-hmm. Just a good, solid, I don't want to say no frills, but it does kind of feel like he's just there to be our young male lead person of action.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So as I said, some of them are obvious.
Cool.
Next up on the list is Vicky.
Also a companion.
Also obvious.
Also a replacement, this time for Susan.
And
I like her a lot. I like them both. I like Stephen and Vicky.
Yeah, I guess she wasn't in this season she was in a fair amount of it, but obviously didn't go all the way. And next up on the list is... I will not be surprised if you don't remember who these are just based on the names, but Corey and Lowry.
Oh, they were two of the people on the planet, right? Right? Am I remembering that right? What was that? I need to scroll down through my list of episode names. Mission to the Unknown, right?
Indeed, that is what they are.
Did they ever even meet the Doctor? How would they be companions? I'm not going to count them. I'm going to say not companions.
Nice. I would agree. They were good characters. I liked them, but they were not companions.
Cool.
And next up is Katarina.
This is one where I'm like, technically, and again, okay, no, don't overthink it. I'm going to say no, not a companion. I think,
Interesting.
like, if you follow the original rules that I had laid out that I tend to go with in my brain, I would say, yes, she is a companion because she did travel in TARDIS. She was, I'm doing such a good job of, like, not overthinking it and of forgetting those original rules. But, like, I think because they did bring her over from one serial to another and she did travel in the TARDIS, but then they basically, like, immediately decided they didn't have anything for her and just literally tossed her out the TARDIS and out the show. I'm going to say no, not a companion.
That's fair. I think I might disagree. I at least partially because I feel like in some sense she basically gave her life for the Doctor. Whether she really realized what she was doing or not, who knows? But I feel like
I can respect her for that. That doesn't make her a companion.
that's fair.
She was barely even in the serial that she was in.
That's also true. Yeah, she was hardly in the Mythmakers, and then didn't last that long in Dalek's Master Plan.
Yep. So,
yeah, I think I'm actually not even 100% decided on her myself.
Fair enough. I mean, we can disagree. We don't have to.
Yeah.
Actually, wait, can we disagree? Is your game, Kyle. You make the rules.
So our next character is Brett.
Remind me who Brett was.
Brett?
Oh, no, he was from the War Machines, right?
No, he was Dalek's Master Plan.
Dalek's Master Plan.
Yeah, we're basically going through the season in order, roughly.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, what was his deal?
He worked for, I forgot what they called the organization, but whatever the Space Force organization was, and I feel like he got killed pretty early in the serial, and he was Sarah Kingdom's brother or something.
Oh, I think we accidentally shipped him for a hot minute.
I think the show kind of sets that up for a minute.
Well, I mean, like, if you just have two characters in a scene together, or if two characters even, like, seem to have knowledge of each other, we'll ship them. We'll ship them all. Yeah, no, not a companion.
Yeah, I agree with that. How about, this one is a less clear-cut one, how about Sarah Kingdom herself?
So when you said that this was the game that we were going to play, and I was thinking about, like, the original rules that I had in mind for what counts as a companion or not, the person I was thinking about was Sarah Kingdom. Because on the one hand, I really want her to be a companion because I like her. I think she's interesting. I think she would have made a great companion if they'd brought her along. But, like, she didn't make it out of this serial, and she doesn't fit the definition that I had in mind, where you have to travel in a TARDIS and you have to be in more than one serial. But because I said I wasn't going to overthink it, and I said I wasn't going to follow those rules, I am going to go ahead and do the opposite of what I did for Katarina, which I guess is kind of the same thing I did for Katarina. Anyway, I'm going to break the rules and say Sarah Kingdom is a companion.
Nice. I think she's another one that I might not be 100% decided on. I do also really want her to be one, and by the original rules that we set out, she wouldn't be. Mm-hmm. And I would just put her through. Part of what makes me undecided, though, is that if I remember correctly, which I might not, but what I remember is that the production wanted her to be a companion and the actor decided not to be.
More power to her, I guess.
And yeah, like, totally more power to her. But yeah, I think that, like, that fact, even though it's kind of a meta fact, it's not like in the show itself, that might be enough to make me not actually classify her as one.
Fair enough.
So next up on the list is Anne Chaplet, or Anne Chaplet, I suppose.
our spunky and feisty companion-esque character. Yeah, she's another one that I think kind of like Sarah Kingdom would have made a fun companion. They seemed to be setting her up to be a companion. Didn't actually fulfill the requirements for being a companion. Now I'm kind of wishing that we'd done like, instead of companion being a binary system, we could have done like a sliding scale. Are you 0% companion, 100% companion?
That's
we could
a nice one, yeah.
Assigning like companion percentages to all these people. But because we're not doing that, I'm going to say no, not a companion.
Yeah, I agree on that one.
Potential companion, but yeah.
Yeah, they are definitely setting up the potential, but they didn't follow through.
Indeed.
I don't think she even ever saw the TARDIS, if I recall.
Makes it hard to be a companion.
Well, speaking of chaplets or chaplets, how about Dodo?
Yep. Companion.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Even though they sent her upstate to the farm.
Yep.
Incidentally, I have sort of gathered from a couple of other Doctor Who podcasts that I listen to after we've recorded our episodes that Dodo's companion departure is widely considered to be the worst companion departure in all of Doctor Who.
How can you consider it the worst when there was no companion departure?
That's a good question, yeah.
I mean, I guess, yeah, technically them sending her off turned out to be her departure, but we didn't even realize it at the time.
Yeah.
So does that still count? It was shitty. I feel bad for her actor.
So next up is an invisible refusian.
Did travel in the TARDIS?
Did it, or was it just on?
Oh no, it was on
the surface to ship.
No, you're right. It was the little. I can't remember what they called them, the rocket ships or whatever that were going from the. Not a companion.
Yeah, I agree. Helpful assistant or, friend and ally for the purposes of the serial, but not a companion.
Yep.
How about the Toymaketor?
So we'll talk more about him later. But for now, let's just say not a companion.
Yeah, I agree. And I suspect I know which segment you are thinking of when you say we'll talk of him later.
Yes. Because unlike you, Kyle, I don't have anything to hide. I have no secret. I mean, these are fun. I'm really enjoying them. I'm glad that you came up with these. I have no complaints, but also I have nothing to hide. I hold nothing back, and all the sections that I'm planning to talk about are right there in our notes.
So we have just a few more on the companion or not list.
Okay.
Our next one is Bat Masterson.
Not a companion.
Nice. Yeah, I was curious what you were going to say because he's not the Doctor's companion, but he's kind of Wyatt Earp's companion.
Oh, I hadn't even. What are we doing here, Kyle?
But that's also something that might come up in a later segment.
That one definitely will come up. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
And our next one is actually two people, Avon and Flower.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Ben and Polly. Not a companion.
Oh, yep, agreed. And our last one, and listeners, Benny has not seen my notes. Our last one is Polly and Ben.
Because they are actually companions. Companions.
Yeah. Yep. They, at the very end of the season, or the episode, I guess it was the very end of the season, they boarded the TARDIS and left on it, so...
Yeah, maybe they're more like in the process of becoming companions.
That could be. Like, they're not quite actually companions yet, but they will be...
Yeah.
Like, soon as the next episode starts or something.
Yeah, they're like...
They're still getting onboarded.
Yeah. They're companions in training.
That's fair. I think that's a valid answer.
Journeyman companions.
Nice. They haven't had their final induction yet.
Indeed.
Well, after our companion discussion is the Battle of the Bands semifinals.
Hell yeah. I think this will be short, and I think you know why.
Yeah, this round, of course, we only have 2 face-offs because we're down to only 4 bands, and our first face-off is the non-diegetic singer who performs the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon again. Mm-hmm. And she is facing off against Horse of Destruction, who performs another original song called Beast Terror.
Oh man, they're singing new songs. I may need to. Nope, actually, you know what? Must stay true to myself here. Stay true to my principles. It's non-diegetic singer and the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon.
Nice. I will say that I cannot take full credit for the name of the song Beast Terror. I got it from an online heavy metal name generator.
Nice. I mean, you know, that kind of rules, and I love it. And I'm sure that I would enjoy listening to it, but still, it ain't the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon.
Nice. Well, the other face-off that is taking place in the Battle of the Bands semifinals, Season 3 of Doctor Who, is, of course, Stephen Regret and Dodo DuPont, who also perform the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon again.
I'm sorry to the audience who has to listen to this so many times, but also not sorry.
Versus Priest of Death, who performs their original song, Massacre.
Nice. And yet, it's going to be a massacre because the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon by Stephen Regret and Dodo DuPont advances.
Indeed. Well, listeners, that was an exciting semifinals. We will return you to our regularly scheduled programming and come back to you with the final round when that happens.
Excellent.
All right, so let's talk about technology.
Indeed, one of our favorite topics.
I did not take like a huge amount of technology notes this season, but I did list a few things throughout the season that I wanted to mention or remember. Mm-hmm. So the first one from the Daleks Master Plan is the magnetic chair.
Yes, and my note on this is that not only is it a very clever and interesting piece of technology for the episode, it also saves some budget.
Yep, they don't even have to get straps or anything.
Indeed.
I think, was it Brett who was trapped in the magnetic chair on the TARDIS?
I mean, that sounds right. It's been a while since I read the Daleks Master
I didn't
Plan.
actually look at my notes for that, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Sure, let's go with that.
I'll be curious to see like if any of these technologies ever get used again. I suspect probably most of them won't, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I had a few from Daleks Master Plan, actually, and the next one, I think I remember. I wrote it down in my notes, apparently, and it is the neutronic randomizer.
Well, my main response to this one is I love the name.
Yeah.
What a good sci-fi name.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's why I put it in my notes whenever I did, is because the name. If I remember right, it's what the Daleks use to throw, not the TARDIS, because they're not on the TARDIS at the time, but whatever ship they're on to like throw them off course or something.
Oh, nice.
Prepare neutronic randomizer. Stand by randomizer.
Well, if it's Dalek technology, I like it all the more.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of being off or on course, also from Daleks
excellent.
Master Plan.
Good segue.
If you are on the surface of a planet and you're trying to find your way to certain things, you could use the impulse compass.
Yes. Different in some significant way from a regular compass. I guess that would be a magnetic compass. Primarily in that it's more sci-fi.
Indeed. And the final thing I had from Dalek's Master Plan, I believe, was also Dalek technology. and it was the voice audio.
The voice audio is one of those that I don't know if it was actually that cool in the episode, but I do remember that we were kind of bullshitting about it and saying, what if the way that it works is that, unlike, say, a loudspeaker or something along those lines, what if you hear it at the exact same volume anywhere within its radius, within its range, and then if you're just a little bit outside the range, you hear nothing.
Right.
Because that's really cool. I like that.
That is really cool. And I think it has to be how it works, because otherwise people who are too close would just go deaf.
Or, people who are very far away can barely hear it.
Right.
Or both.
So, yeah, that is totally how voice audio works, and it is cool, and that's why it's on my list.
Sounds good to me. Sounds just as good as if I'd been listening to it over voice audio.
Podcasts are kind of like voice audio through space and time.
Sure.
Because if you use like headphones to listen to the podcast, and then it's the same volume that you set it at, whether you're close or far from where we recorded it.
That totally makes sense.
So thank you, listeners, for listening to The Doctor's Watcher, the voice audio where I watch Doctor Who and tell you all about it.
I feel like we could do that. I feel like we could make that part of our thing.
So I have a few pieces of technology from the Ark, and the first one is miniaturization.
I feel like the use on the show is basically the only use that I would really want to use it for, and yet it would be good for that. Like travel, when you go from place to place, you just miniaturize a bunch of people, you ship them over, and you make them big again. Like, you complain about leg space on airplanes, not a problem when you're like, less than an inch high?
Yeah, there's plenty of room.
So I think if this was real, it would be cool. Assuming, everything works as intended.
Yeah. I guess they sort of combine it with like cryogenic stasis, but we could make that an option for like long trips, but we could also, if it's just going to be like a short flight, we could just shrink you and ship you.
Yep.
So also in the Ark, they invented live streaming.
Indeed. Which, I mean, since we're such big fans of voice audio and podcast format where you can listen to us whenever, we don't need no live streaming.
It's true. Live streaming is for chumps who have room in their schedule to do things when someone else tells them to.
And who among us has that, huh?
Indeed. The final one I had listed from the Ark is one that I honestly wouldn't mind having in our real life, which
same.
is the sterilization or decontamination field masks. Is that what I wrote? I wonder if I meant face masks.
Well, they're sort of out in the field as doctors, I guess. Also in the surgical room. I don't know. Maybe meant face masks.
If I recall, they were masks that were just like basically plastic things kind of in front of their faces that you wouldn't expect to be effective like with our technology. And so we figured that they must have they must have a decontamination field. Yeah, that's what I meant.
We figured out our notes. Yeah, I agree. I want one of those. I am one of those people who still wears masks when I'm out in public, like shopping at the store or whatever. Not just because of COVID, but also like I don't want to get a flu or a cold or anything.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that my immune system now sucks. So, you know what? Whatever. I don't mean to dwell on that. Give me that good sterile decontamination field mask technology.
Indeed. I also wear masks in public, and I think that these ones with decontamination fields would be a lot more comfortable.
Indeed.
So
Speaking of things that are comfortable.
Indeed. The last one I have listed is from the serial that we call The Less Technological People. And it is the reacting vibrator, which
will remind our listeners.
Of course, as you recall, the doctor uses for calculations.
Yes, and my reaction to that was, I think more people would be doing calculations if they could do them on the reacting vibrator.
I wonder, like, is it reacting to the calculation you're trying to perform on it, or dot dot dot?
Yeah, dot dot dot. So sometimes it's like, kind of, I know we could get a little like wacky with our jokes here, and sometimes it gets a little blue, but I'm also like, and some, I honestly feel like the fact that we record over webcam makes me feel a little less ashamed of some of the things that come out of my mouth. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't actually have to look you in the eye, but I'm looking pretty close to it. So maybe I should just move on to the next one, because I must have added this myself. I can't actually remember now, because I was working on these notes for a little while.
Nice.
Or at least you shared them with me a while ago, so I might have made this change and then forgotten about it. But I wrote down light gun. Also from the less technological people. I very much enjoy the kind of low budget tractor beam aspect of it. And so, yeah, the light gun.
Nice. Yeah, I like the light gun too. It also, saves on budget. It's, a physical prop, which are easy and cheap to make. And it doesn't really have like a visible special effect. It just kind of makes somebody stop and walk around.
And man, Steven sure liked it, so he gets his stamp of approval.
Yeah, he was real light gun happy in that serial.
Yeah. And I didn't have this in my notes, but it did occur to me that we should maybe even talk about the life energy transference machine.
Yeah, that
Kyle, do you wish you had one of those?
It's cool technology. I would wish to know how it works. But, I can't think of who or what I would be willing to use it on. I could, like, suck the life out of mosquitoes or something.
No, it has to be a higher order being, remember?
Oh, that's true. It's not going to work. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually I was about to say, well, let's see what the results of the upcoming national election are going to be and then decide who we want to use it on. But if we have to use it on a higher order being and not a parasite, then... dot.
Yeah, dot.
Yeah, but we had some good technologies, though.
Yeah, it is good technology, or cool technology.
They were fun.
So this was not actually in my notes, and it might even make more sense to mention it later, but I'll just say it now because I'm thinking about it.
Cool, go for it.
The serial of the less technological people, which of course is what we called it, and is sort of officially called the Savages.
Yeah.
I came up with another possible name for it that is closer to the original name. It could be called the Savages, parentheses, this name refers to the more technological people.
Indeed. We did decide that they were the real savages.
Indeed. So, yeah, we could just, spell that out in the name of the serial.
All right. Well, listeners, if you feel like saying that whole bit every time you reference that serial, we ain't going to stop you.
So, back to my actual notes. Our next segment, of course, listeners, I know you've been on the edge of your seats waiting for this. The final round of the Season 3 Battle of the Bands.
Excellent.
And, of course, after the audience cheers and the host gets on stage, thanks everyone for being here and for participating in all of this, he, sets up the final round, which, of course, is only one showdown. And it is going to be the non-diegetic singer versus Stephen Regret and Dodo DuPont, both of whom perform the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon for a third time.
And if the audience wasn't sick of it before, they sure are now. Well, sorry, apologies to the fans of the non-diegetic singer, but I just really like Stephen and Dodo. Stephen Regret and Dodo DuPont, and Stephen Taylor and Dodo Chaplet. And so I have to give the win to them.
Nice.
But I will say that once the winner's been decided and everyone claps, and maybe the winner gives a speech and the loser gives like a what is it, congratulatory thing and talks about how happy they were, how far they got, etc. Anyway, I think that they should do a song together. They should all sing it together just to show that there's no hard feelings, and give us a version where all three of them are I guess only Steven was really singing the version. But in this one, Dodo can sing too. Everyone sings.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. And that does happen.
Excellent. In our little headcanon, the Doctor's Watcher extended universe.
Cool. Yeah, so since the Battle of the Bands segments kind of got shorter and shorter, I'll just want to run through a few of the other songs that didn't get performed. I'm not gonna.
Just about to ask for that.
Oh, nice. So, Dravins of Galaxy 4 had prepared. All the bands prepared 3 songs, obviously.
I feel bad because the ones I picked were the only ones who were singing the same things every time.
The Dravins of Galaxy 4, as their second song, had an original song which was called Keepin' It Real.
Excellent.
And their final song would have been a cover of Beastie Boys' Intergalactic.
Excellent, excellent.
And if Horse of Destruction had advanced to the final round, they would have been performing Evil Mr. Ed.
Nice.
Priest of Death, of course, would have performed their smash hit Bell of Doom.
Nice. I mean, genuinely, I think that somebody out there should, like, temporarily, if you've got a metal band, just, rebrand it for your one novelty single and actually make Bell of Doom. I think that would be an awesome song.
Yeah. The Steel Sky, of course, their compositions are all untitled. And they're all basically the same, they're just different chords.
Oh, okay. Still counts.
The Toymaker, he had another music box that would have played Greensleeves.
Okay.
And his final music box would have been Edelweiss.
All right, cool.
All very classic.
Yeah. Also, all can be very creepy when played slightly off key on your creepy music box.
And Johnny Ringo had prepared Vertical Cowboy.
Okay. I'm assuming these are other Ringo Starr references.
his version of Vertical Man.
All right, cool.
And his final track would have been It Don't Come Easy, which is actually just straight up a song that exists in our world.
Very cool. All right, well, Kyle, I'm glad that you shared those. I'm sure that the audience would have been so sad. I would have been sad, I know, but also our audience. We would have all been sad not to hear them all, because those were excellent. I very much enjoyed this whole bit that we did.
Thank you. I had a good time coming up with them.
Excellent.
Hey, listeners. After a hard drive failure, I'm recording a few new mid-rolls to finish out Season 3. Remember to back up your data. If there's one, there's none. And also, tell your friends about this podcast and give us a nice rating and review. Back to the show. Bye. So the next thing I thought we would do is listener questions.
Excellent, because we love you, listeners.
And we do, and we have a few questions. We didn't get too many, but that's fine because we can spend some time on them if we want.
Cool.
We got a few questions from our listener, Danny. Thanks, Danny.
Thank you.
And the first question is about when we're listening to a reconstruction or an audio, do we tend to imagine it with happening with BBC budget or as real? Danny says that when listening to y'all, I find myself defaulting to real, except when y'all are talking about what it actually looked like.
I feel like this is primarily for you, Kyle. So how do you tend to picture it?
So I have at this point not actually listened to any of the Big Finish audios yet. I intend to, but haven't gotten around to it quite yet. And I mentioned earlier that I only did like one or two of the like official audio, like audiobook versions of A Missing Serial pretty early on. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty much always either watching the actual show or the loose cannon reconstructions. And I think loose cannon tries to base them on the actual visuals as much as they're able to. Mm-hmm. So I tend to, just see it as presented in a BBC budget. Also, my imagination is not really like super visual itself. So like if I were to listen to a Big Finish audio, like I'm not sure I would actually be like quote unquote seeing it happen in my head as such.
Interesting. Yeah, they look the same in my imagination, whether it's a reconstruction or whether the episode exists, because either way, Kyle is watching Doctor Who and telling me all about it. And I think in my brain it's somewhere in between the two. It probably looks a little nicer than the, limited by my imagination, but it looks a little nicer than the BBC budget, but without being like super flashy, fancy, high budget, everything happening type of thing.
That makes sense.
I think in my imagination it's kind of desaturated, but maybe not like fully black and white. I don't know.
Interesting.
Maybe it changes based on my like state of mind or something. Who knows?
Danny also wondered if we see any shift in the feel or the writing over the seasons, because Danny knows that it does become gradually less educational.
Yeah, I think the educational aspect of the show was always slightly dubious, but it has definitely become even less educational as time went on. And I think I kind of feel like that is the shift.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Like, it never really felt that educational. They would, tried to have a few moments here and there, but I feel like they didn't really hit, and like they haven't even attempted since who knows how long. Yeah. So that's definitely been a shift. We have seen some character growth in the Doctor. We joke about it, but I think there is some actual growth there over time. Mm-hmm. And we have also kind of shifted away from like pure historical. Like there's less of like just going to a history time and being there for a while and then leaving. Yeah. And more of like, there's some weird sci-fi shit happening in the history time. Yeah, I mean, I guess that the Gunfighters was a pretty straightforward historical one, but we did have some more sci-fi stuff going on in some of the others. No, it's a good question. Mm-hmm. Very interesting to think about. And I think in terms of the shift, it's not something that I've paid a ton of attention to, but I do think that based on the budget, you can kind of tell when I'm thinking specifically of the Celestial Toymaker. I guess it hasn't been so much a shift over the course of the show, so much as shifting from one serial to another. But when you see a serial like that where they clearly just did not have a lot of money, you can tell. I mean, really. Yeah, definitely. I'll also note that we've gone through a couple of different producers now, and I'm sure that has an effect on like the feel and the writing. Of our current producer, Innes Lloyd, has not really been around that long yet, so it'll be interesting to see, I guess, what kind of stories he likes to tell. Indeed. And Danny also wondered what patterns in the writing we enjoy the most, and or if we have any pet peeves about the writing or the patterns in the writing. An example that was given is like splitting up immediately and getting captured and escaping over and over. Mm-hmm. I'll let you take that one first, Kyle. So one thing I wrote was I was thinking about like this show's pretty slow paced to our modern TV watching sensibilities. And I don't actually mind the slow pacing and like a 4 to 6 episode serial in concept or in general. But it does a lot of the time feel like, well, sometimes feel like they're taking 2 or 3 episodes worth of story and stretching it out to 4 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. I feel like I am pretty good about ignoring it because I'm sure it's going to be a pretty common occurrence.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
if
feel
you,
like the less technological people especially could easily have been 2 episodes.
yeah. And, you know, I understand like that's not how their production works at the time. Like they just do these longer stories. But, you know, we've also had like, I'm blanking on the name, but the 2 episode serial in season 1 where they're trapped on the TARDIS because the spring broke.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And Mission to the Unknown is kind of sort of a 1 episode standalone.
Well,
Kind
I
of.
mean, it's also kind of a, kind of a teaser for the Daleks' master plan.
But yeah, so they can break this pattern if they choose to, and instead they just crank out a 4 episode serial that only has 2 or 3 episodes worth of story in it.
Yeah.
But that's
So
okay.
that's your pet peeve?
That's my pet peeve.
All right. Do you have any patterns that you enjoy the most?
I will say that I don't mind them getting captured and escaping over and over. I think that does kind of lead to the serials that maybe are a bit too long. But I don't mind that happening in and of itself, the capturing and escaping. And I actually enjoy all the splitting the party up. I think that's kind of fun. Back when we had like the Doctor plus 3 companions, we got a lot of like different pairings. You know, sometimes it would be like the Doctor and Ian. Sometimes it would be like Ian and Susan. Sometimes it's Barbara and the Doctor. So that's always fun to get like different groupings. We haven't really had enough companions to do that as much recently. But
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, I think generally splitting the party is fun for us to talk about, and it leads to like good stories happening in the show.
Cool. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it also helps, given that we do have the episodes dragged out like they are, splitting the party helps to kind of mitigate that a bit by allowing us to cover more ground and having different, using those different dynamics of the different combinations of companions and Doctor that you mentioned, Kyle. I think it can kind of help with those longer serials. For mine, I don't know, now I kind of feel like I'm just being kind of a woke killjoy here, where I feel like I'm obliged to say that the pattern in the writing that I have a pet peeve about is kind of the 1960s, I don't know, prejudices that the show has.
Yeah.
But that's not a fun answer. So I think this, we can kind of keep it more lighthearted too, and say, let's see. I like the Doctor. I mean, I like his little doctorisms, the way he talks, his little hmms, and his being very single-minded and only wanting to deal with what he wants to deal with, and ignoring everything else. I just think he's a fun character.
Nice.
Is that a pattern of the writing? Who can say? And pet peeves. I'll also say like the way that lately the companions have been started to get like chucked more quickly. I feel like as the show has gone on, the various departures have become shittier and shittier. Susan's wasn't great, but like I get why they did it, and at least they did try to make it feel momentous and give it its due. And then Ian and Barbara got to do their little montage of them going around,
right? Which is
London.
One of my favorite moments.
It was a lot of fun, and then I feel like ever since then we've been kind of on a downward slump. And I agree that Dodo's was probably the low point for that.
Yeah, I guess we will eventually see what happens to Polly and Ben.
Yeah. So, those are mine.
Nice. We have one more listener question, which I received via that one social media site.
Oh, that one.
That one. It was from listener Jeff. I am not 100% sure if he actually meant to submit this as a season wrap-up question or if it was just like a comment at us.
Doesn't matter. We needed them for the season wrap-up, and we're using it as such.
Jeff asks, have you considered Worpsterson?
Listener Jeff, thank you for sending this in. This has made my life significantly better. All joking aside, we love shipping and ship names, and I think Worpsterson is excellent.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. The Wyatt Earp Bat Masterson ship, I feel like we didn't actually talk about it much during the serial itself. We talked about it a bit after the serial.
Yep.
I don't remember if we had a name for it or not, but if we did, it was not as good as Worpsterson.
I'm not going to decide which one was better because I do remember the name that we gave it, and I think it was also pretty good, but Worpsterson is also good. I'm going to call it just as good as ours, and I'll get to that in our next segment.
Excellent. I will agree with just as good as ours, even though I don't remember ours.
You're going to be reminded. I'm happy to remind you because we're going to, in our next segment. You know what, Kyle? Why don't I introduce our next segment? Our next segment is us talking about our favorite and notable ships from this past season.
Indeed.
Kyle shared with me a list, and I added a few to it. And now I'm realizing I don't remember which ones were in Kyle's original list versus which ones I added. So let me actually open up Kyle's version of this document as well, so I can cross-reference my list with yours. So, starting with, from the Daleks' master plan, Stara Kingler, which is, of course, Stephen and Sarah Kingdom.
Indeed.
So much potential.
This is, well, I don't think I can really pick like a favorite, but this is definitely going to be like one of my top ships.
Same.
Just across the board, Stara Kingler.
Same. I don't know if this is me being woke or me being cancelable or both, but competent man and even more competent woman, chef's kiss.
Yeah, definitely. And, put him in a situation fraught with danger.
Yes.
Where
at first they're sort of against each other. And yeah, that's the good stuff.
They're both people of action.
Yeah. Feel free to cancel me on every single one of these listeners. I'm not going to consider which ones are cancelable because I've decided now they're all cancelable. I am just shipping all the wrong stuff here. Such as Nicholas, who was one of the Huguenots, or Huguenots, or however you pronounce them, and Stephen. I think this was the one that probably came the closest to being an actual ship on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, Stephen stays over at his place, so at that point, as far as we're concerned, we're basically fucking.
The show does not officially reveal how many beds are at Nicholas's place, but they were like in France in the 1600s. They were like peasants or whatever. They're like city people. They're not like super rich. I can't imagine he has like a ton of beds.
Yeah. I don't think s03, the fanfiction website, has a canonical tag for there were 2 or more beds. And yet there is one for there was only one bed.
And now I will say that I couldn't remember quite if the name we had settled on was Nicoleven or Stevelus.
It might have been Stevelus. I wrote down Nicoleven, but yeah, listeners, if you remember, feel free to thwart us.
Indeed.
Yeah, and then the next one, I don't know, I said Nicoleven was the closest to being canonical, but I'm looking at a couple of these other ones, and I'm like, yeah, maybe a couple of these others are also as canonical, or honestly more canonical. And I would say maybe as canonical was from the celestial Toymaketor.
Indeed. Yeah, this was
I love this one.
Very close to being canonical ship.
Yeah, yeah. I would almost want to like go and write this one if I had something for them to be doing. But
Yeah.
playing games together is clearly the height of this, and we already got that on the show. It's just maybe I would write a version in which the Doctor is visible and can talk and is tangible. Or maybe parts of him are visible and tangible. There's potential here.
Yeah, maybe it could be like a 2-person D&D game of some sort, a 2-person RPG where like the Toymaker, I think, would be the DM, clearly.
I was taking this in a different direction where like instead of making just his hand visible and tangible, the ...
I could.
Moving on.
There could be like dice to roll to determine what's visible and tangible.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah. That's good. That make it into a little game, and who wins? Maybe they both win. No, the Toymaker, of course, insists on winning. Which means
true, he does. ...
And for this next one in my notes, I wrote burp, but I am now going to cross that off and replace that with Werpsterson. Thank you, listener Jeff.
Indeed. Thank you, listener Jeff. Burp/Werpsterson is a great ship by whatever name we know it by.
Indeed. I quite enjoyed it. I like, two crusty, manly men very much living in this society and coming at it with mindsets where love between two men is not something that they dare speak out loud, and yet stoically showing they love each other through caring for each other's well-being. That's
Indeed.
the good shit.
And
give me two repressed old men with big mustaches, and guns and cowboy hats,
caring for each other, and then like having to go do what they feel is the thing to do in spite of the other one trying to stop them because of the care for each other.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. A very important part of that. And we also had in the less technological people. I feel like for each of these serials, I only had like one ship per serial so far, but hold on to that. Put a pin in that for now. For the less technological people, I had Nenexorce. That one is like basically canon, right?
Yeah, I think
like actually basically canon, as opposed to all these other ones that were just kind of treating as like, hey, they knew Steven stayed over at Nicholas's house. But for this one, it's like, no. We're pretty clearly meant to pick up on the fact that there's something going on between Nanina and Exorce.
Man, Exorce is such a good name.
Yeah. Nanina too.
Nanina is also a good name.
Exorce, I would say is probably even better. Yeah. And yeah, I agree. I don't have a whole lot more to say about the ship other than their names. Their names go well together, and I hope that they do well and help Steven rebuild that society, and maybe Nenexorceven could also become a ship.
Nice.
And then, so earlier I was saying every serial only had one ship. The War Machines had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ships. Starting with Dodali, the Dodo Poly ship. Good ship. Always like a good, what do you want to call it? WLW Yuri ship.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it got all the better when we added Ben to it and it became Dodali Ben.
The Dodali Ben ship.
Yes, I'm not usually an OT3 kind of guy, but give me some of that polyamory. I know we already used that in one of the episode titles.
Indeed, yeah. I quite enjoyed this. Dodali is good. Dodali Ben is even better. I will also mention, I don't think I said this a whole lot in the episode itself, but I shipped Polly and Kitty the bartender when they first meet a lot. Exes.
Yeah.
That one doesn't really have a real strong ship name, though.
No, maybe our listeners will send us in something. And then we don't tend to ship the Doctor with many people, which is, I think, one of the reasons I like the Toymaketor so much. And having the Doctor sort of on an even playing field. Aha! See what I did there? Playing field. Made Toymaketor so good. But anyway, Samoktor is the next one. This is one that I got from Kyle's original list. the Sir Charles Summer and Doctor ship.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time together in the War Machines.
Yeah.
Once the Doctor met Sir Charles, he kind of just hung out with him like the rest of the serial.
Yeah, there's potential there.
Yeah, it might be more of a friendship. It's kind of unclear, but...
Maybe it would have done better if the Doctor's heart hadn't been stolen and he moved on to Dockinism.
Indeed, Dockinism. And, with how strong of a ship Dockitecture was, like, we could see this coming. Dockitecture will never die.
I think the Doctor's best ships are always going to be with non-living things, concepts. I don't know, but Dockinism is a good one. It's one that I hope that we remember to kind of bring back and reference whenever the Doctor is working on a mechanism. I hope we remember that it's an instance of Dockinism, just like if he admires architecture or criticizes it, it's Dockitecture. I remember when he was criticizing the shitty spaceships in the one with the Dravins, Galaxy 4.
Right.
And if that's Dockitecture, does that count as negging?
We decided that spaceships were architecture.
Yeah.
Although now I'm wondering if that was actually an early instance of Dockinism.
Oh, yeah. Maybe it's both. Maybe the Doctor's in trouble. From the waist up.
Are spaceships architecture or are they mechanisms?
Man, when you're a freak, maybe it's just checking all your boxes.
And, of course, our final ship...
Yeah.
Of the season is a ship that I believe is probably going to sail for a while.
Hopefully.
Which is Pollen.
Yep, it's a good old het ship between two companions. So maybe we could count on those 1960s BBC writers to keep this one afloat. Yeah,
I mean, Barbarian lasted for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And will last in my heart forever.
Indeed.
So... Pollen is a new ship. We'll see where it goes and what adventures it has. So, dear listeners, we are nearing the end of our program this week.
Indeed, we are, Kyle.
Our third seasonal wrap-up episode. I hope you are enjoying it if you've listened this far. And yeah, we do have a couple more segments that are becoming classics at this point, classics of the wrap-up episode. And the first one of our final segments is going to be our episode title showcase.
Excellent.
We have in the past done like a competition that we didn't really ever set rules for. And yeah, this season we decided, let's just talk about the episode titles we like. We don't have to pick winners.
Indeed. So, Kyle, what were your faves from Galaxy 4?
From Galaxy 4, I had... Did I have any?
I'll say I had Doctor Who and the Exploding Planet.
That's a good one. I am wondering now why I didn't list that one. Because Doctor Who and the Exploding Planet is a great title.
How about from the Mythmakers, did you...
Yeah, from the Mythmakers, I listed Doctor Who and the Temple of Secrets.
That's a good one. No, I'm wondering why I didn't list that one, because I didn't. But it's, yeah. I mean, I love temples and I love secrets. So
pretty classic adventure sounding.
Maybe it wasn't quite up there.
Yeah, there are a lot that I was kind of unsure about if I should list or not. But yeah, we'll see what we ended up with.
For the Daleks Master Plan, I had several, because first of all, because there was a ton of episodes in that serial, but also because it's Terry Nation, and Terry Nation tends to give us good episode titles. So my first one on that list was Doctor Who and the Day of Armageddon.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. Mm-hmm. I also had that one on my list, in fact.
Excellent.
Although I'm noticing now that I actually had two from the Mythmakers.
Oh, sorry, Kyle.
Yeah.
I just moved right on.
Well, I didn't list what serial they were from when I listed them, so I'm kind of cross-referencing as we go.
Enjoy, listeners. We're taking you on a wild ride here.
But yeah, shout out to Doctor Who and the Horse of Destruction.
Mm-hmm. A good one. All right, so Deluxe Master Plan. My first one was Doctor Who and the Day of Armageddon, and I also had Doctor Who and the Devil's Planet.
I also listed Doctor Who and the Day of Armageddon, and I also had a second one from the Deluxe Master Plan, which was Doctor Who and the Destruction of Time.
Oh, dang. All right, you jumped right to the end. And between those, I also had Doctor Who and the Destruction of Time, but then also between those, I also had Doctor Who and the Golden Death and
Nice.
Doctor Who and the Abandoned Planet.
Nice.
Man, if I saw these on a paperback rack at, let's say at like a thrift store or something, then I might pick them up.
Yeah, like on the
I'd at
50
least
cent table.
Pull them off the shelf to take a look at that painted cover.
Nice, totally.
How about From the Massacre?
From the Massacre, we have, of course, referenced earlier in this very episode, Doctor Who and the Priest of Death.
Interesting. I even started earlier than that in the Massacre. I started with Doctor Who and the War of God.
You know,
Doctor Who
I
and the
had
War of
that
God.
one on my list, and then I pulled it because I was worried about if I was doing too many, but now I'm worried about if I'm
I
doing
might
too
have
few.
done too many. I don't know. I also had Doctor Who and the Priest of Death, and I had Doctor Who and the Bell of Doom. So really,
Nice.
the only thing I didn't pick from the Massacre was the Sea Beggar.
From the Ark, I had just one, I guess, which was Doctor Who and the Steel Sky.
I also had that one, Doctor Who and the Steel Sky. Indeed.
Excellent. Celestial Toymaker. It was a good serial, but I wasn't really that into any of the titles.
Yeah, agreed. Actually, Kyle, I should let you take it from here because spoilers, I didn't have any others on my list, so I'll let you wrap it up.
Nice. Yeah, I have a couple honorable mentions. We've listed
yes,
all
me
my
too.
main ones, but
Okay, cool. Let's switch to the honorable mentions then, Kyle. What were your honorable mentions?
so I have two honorable mentions. They're very different titles, and
I'm wondering if it's the same ones I had because I also had two, and they were also very different
Nice.
titles.
Yeah, I am mentioning them honorably for very different reasons.
I am positive that one of them is the same. Positive. I would bet my life on it.
My first one is The Nightmare Begins.
All right, now I'm slightly nervous because that wasn't one of mine, but I'm still pretty confident.
Yeah, I thought that was a strong title. It's the first episode of the Daleks Master Plan, setting it all up. And my other honorable mention is Don't Shoot the Pianist.
Oh no, that wasn't the one I was thinking. I was thinking Small Profit, Quick Return. I thought you'd go for the pun.
That's another good one. Yeah,
Well, if I bet my life on it, I would have died. I'm glad I didn't. So, yeah, the other one I had was Don't Shoot the Pianist as well.
Nice.
My honorable mentions were Small Profit, Quick Return, which was from the Mythmakers, and from the Gunfighters, Don't Shoot the Pianist.
Indeed. And, I think
Good advice.
I think we deserve a mention for going that entire episode and not making any jokes about the title Don't Shoot the Pianist and other words that sound like pianist. Well, we have reached our final segment of the season 3 wrap-up episode. Listeners, I know you've been waiting for this all episode long, all season long, to finally find out what our serial tier rankings are for season 3.
Indeed. And now that it's sort of in my brain as we do these, that I'm going to be giving these letter rankings, I kind of find it hard at times not to just do that as we go. Or like at the end when, I ask you, hey, Kyle, you value the time of our listeners, blah, blah, blah. Would you recommend that they watch this serial? Then it's hard not to be like, all right, so what would you throw that out as? Like a C, a B? It sounds like this one might be an A or something, but like, no, save it for the end. Save it for the wrap up. And here we are at the wrap up. So let's wrap up and let's start giving grades.
Indeed. So, of course, our first serial this season, way back, who knows how long ago. Well, my notes do, but I'm not looking right now.
That's right.
Was Galaxy 4.
Yes.
And I I put this on the B tier. I thought this was a fun story. It was good animation. It was kind of nice to have a little splash of color in the black and white era.
It is now, yeah. Maybe not originally, but does it get points for that?
Steven was kind of useless in the serial. I guess the role that he plays was actually originally written for Barbara, but then she and Ian left, and so Steven kind of took over that role.
Kind of sucks that they wrote a useless role for Barbara, but okay. Not totally surprising.
Yeah, that's a bit against this serial. I did like the Chumbleys a lot, though, and the Rill.
Yeah.
And they honestly might be why this is B tier and not C tier.
Yeah, I also had it as B tier, very much the same reasons. I enjoyed the Chumbleys, I enjoyed the Rill. I thought the Draven were kind of fun. If you toss the weird sexism, anti-feminism from there. Like, if you were to make this today and do it more tongue-in-cheek, then I think that it might be a lot of fun. But watching it, you sort of get this impression like, oh no, they meant it. Like, this is actually anti-feminist. They're not doing a bit. Then yeah, I think if it had been like a modern one and it had been tongue-in-cheek, maybe it would have been an A. But nope, it gets a B.
Yeah, that's fair. Incidentally, Russell T Davies seems to like calling back old ones, so if you're looking for ideas, Russell, the Draven are always over in Galaxy 4.
Which leads us on to the Mythmakers. Since you gave your rating first for the last one, I'll go first here. This is one that felt kind of long. I enjoyed the whole, what if it's the Trojan War, but real type of thing. But then they also, they were kind of implying like, oh, you got the, Homer's version of it in the Iliad, but, it was based on real people. But then they also stuck pretty closely to the Iliad in some ways, like that stretched them. Anyway, I don't think that they quite hit that, that premise. I think if they had wanted to do this is the real story behind the Iliad, they could have made it more realistic.
That makes sense, yeah.
But I didn't quite feel that in this one. Also, I had that, like, they had a pun name for one of the episodes, and I know that the author had originally wanted to do puns for all the episodes, and I kind of feel like if they had, it would have been even better. And finally, the way that Vicky leaves at the end, which really kind of feels like a rehash of the way that Susan leaves, the way that they pair her up with a dude, and now she's in love, and now she's going to stick behind to, like, presumably raise kids or whatever, be a wife. I sort of docked points for that, but I did enjoy the Iliadness of it. I thought that there were some fun moments. So I gave it a B.
Yeah, I also gave this a B. I thought it was a pretty fun script. Like, it had, kind of a lot of little jokes and one-liners and stuff that were fun. Similar to the pun title. I was thinking maybe that's why I didn't include it in my title list, is because it's only the one episode out of the 4. It kind of felt out of place.
You're not helping Kyle. I still would have died if I had bet my life on it. My death would be on your. I mean, no, that was on me. I'm the one who offered to die. So really, you shouldn't blame yourself. I would just be dead.
Yeah, that's fair. But the doctor in the serial was inside the Trojan horse, and that's pretty cool.
That's true.
So yeah, historical serials aren't always my favorite overall, but I thought this was a pretty fun one. So yeah, I gave it a B.
Cool.
And next up, of course, is the Daleks Master Plan.
Indeed.
Which this might be the one that I wrote the most notes on in my serial tier rankings.
It had how many episodes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 episodes. Am I counting that right? Like, yeah, there's plenty to talk about.
13 if you count Mission to the Unknown.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So,
Jeez Louise.
I thought about this for a while. I want it to be worthy of S tier.
Wow.
I like Sarah Kingdom a lot. I like the Daleks a lot. all the Mavic Chen Guardian of Earth stuff was interesting.
It was fun to do bits on, that's for sure.
I thought the serial had potential, but it's just so long.
It is long.
And not only is it long, but it also gets kind of lost in the middle. Like, the story wanders a bit. We have the weird Christmas episode, which, I understand the production reasons why they did that, but it's still just kind of a weird Christmas episode in the middle of the Dalek serial.
I love that this exists, or I should say I love that this existed. And it's probably unlikely to ever be found again because, canonically, no matter what you do, if you accept that these first Doctor episodes are still canon in modern Doctor Who, you have to accept that at one point the Doctor looked at the camera and he wished you, the audience, a Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas or whatever he said.
The rest of the entirety of Doctor Who,
yes,
we know that he knows that he's on a TV show.
He's at least in some sense aware of the audience.
Of an audience, yeah.
Maybe it was a Christmas miracle, but yeah.
So, yeah, I was debating A tier or B tier. If it was not too long and if it didn't get lost in the middle, obviously I would have put it on S.
Yeah.
A tier or B tier. If it was only one of the two, if it was just too long but the story was solid the whole time, or if it got lost in the middle but it was only 6 episodes, I probably would have put it on A tier, but sorry, Terry Nation and Dennis Spooner and director Doug Camfield, this was B tier, and it was the BBC's decision to make it too long, and you all suffer in the tier rankings because of it.
Dang. All right. And yet I do have to agree. I'm going to go ahead and cut to the chase and say I too gave it B tier. Which is funny because going into it, I was I think in the past few times I was if it has Daleks in it, S tier. And the first Daleks, I was Daleks, S tier. And the next one I was even better Daleks, still S tier because it doesn't get any higher. And then this one I was there we got the Daleks back. And man, the quality has really fallen. And I think probably for the same reason that the quality of the show fell, which is overexposure, that it was just too much of a good thing. They wanted to really lean on those Daleks and pull in the ratings, and they overcompensated. I don't know, overcommitted. It did have Stara Kingler in it, which I think is a great ship, probably the best Steven ship that we ever had. But yeah, too long. Oh, and also Katarina gets chucked out the airlock.
That's true.
In this
didn't
episode.
Even have that in my notes.
And I will have to dock points for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, B tier for the Daleks' master plan. Which brings us to the massacre, or the massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, which it's interesting because it's the first historical one where I would not have guessed that we were going to do one about the massacre of the Huguenots in France. So in terms of educational content, this one I actually learned stuff. In terms of the actual plot, I was just they made it too convoluted. I just remember being there's so many characters and they're all all the characters moving from one place to another. And now we're these guys are plotting against those guys and these guys are allied with those guys. And it was just convoluted and kind of dull. And, we did get an assassin who tries to shoot a guy, doesn't even pull that off. Nickel even was fine, but I don't like it as much as Stara Kingler. So, it wasn't bad. I learned stuff. I still gave it a B tier. It had some interesting bits. I think I would have been happier if Anne had actually become a companion, given that they were trying so hard to set her up as one. But the fact that they basically did a bait and switch and switched her out for Dodo at the end is also just kind of weird. So yeah, it was, I don't think it was bad. I did learn something. I do think I'm giving points for that, but I gave it a B.
Yeah, I agree. I gave it a B as well. I thought, Stevelis or Nickel-Even, whatever we call it, was pretty good, but also obviously agree it's no Stara Kingler. I did enjoy the whole little plot line about the abbot of Amboise who looks like the Doctor.
Yeah,
Like, that was fun. But
what was the payoff there?
Yeah, I also feel like they didn't really do that much with it.
I agree that it was fun.
So I liked having Anne around for a few episodes. I also agree it would have been fun to have her as an official companion for several episodes. I almost gave this A tier just because I had just given 3 B tiers in a row and I didn't want to do a fourth, but I'm not going to bump it up to A just for that reason. So this was also a B tier serial for me.
Okie doke.
And that brings us to The Ark, which, listeners, is my first non-B tier of the season. I did give this one an A.
Oh, cool. You like those monoids.
I did. I thought this was we had the cool time jump story, and it was, sort of like 2 mini serials. So it was kind of playing with the format in a fun way. Starting with the whole kind of 2-parter about like Dodo spreading a disease that the Doctor then cures. And then we skip ahead 700 years or whatever and have a whole other mini serial about humans being oppressed by the monoids who they used to oppress themselves. So yeah, I thought this was fun. I'm into the sci-fi ones, and we had a few fun technologies come out of this one. So yeah, I put this one on the A tier.
Yeah, I think this one was a lot of fun. I enjoy the monoids. I did like the idea of returning to the same spot later, and the sneeze having completely changed the society through the plague. The monoids were good. I think I was leaning toward giving it an A, but in the end I kind of I went with a B because I felt like they kind of cheaped out with oh shoot, you're gonna have to remind me what the invisible aliens were.
The Refusians.
The Refusians, yeah. And the fact that they like recycled that from a previous serial where they also had invisible aliens, because I feel like now they've just realized that they can save on alien costumes if they make the aliens invisible. I think I might have stuck with the A if this had been the first time that they pulled that, but the fact that they were doing that again, I was just like, come on, guys. We haven't even been doing it this long, and that really just felt like it was ironically a budget-saving thing, even though otherwise they apparently blew their budget on that serial with the props and the models and the many monoid costumes. They really made too many monoid costumes. But I went with a B on that one. It also didn't really have any good ships in it. Maybe I was subconsciously giving it a B for that reason as well. Speaking of good ships, though, the Celestial Toymaker. I thought this one was great. I love the ship Toymaketor. I love that the Doctor has this like villainous character who's, because it's hard to ship the Doctor, I think, with a human character or like a human-ish character, because the Doctor is so alien and strange. And I know that they hadn't quite established that yet at the time that Doctor seems to be human. They seem to actually refer to him as human at times. But in our brains, we're like, oh, he's the Doctor, he's a Time Lord, he's from Gallifrey and all this stuff. Or is he? We'll get into that many seasons from now. Yeah, I felt like that ship was great. I wasn't sure what to do about the clowns. Do I dock it points for clowns? Maybe, yeah, I really struggled with that one. But then I was still, I think, leaning toward maybe giving it an A, even with the clowns. I think the clowns, I wasn't going to give it an S tier with the clown content. And then I was like, oh yeah, they dropped the N-word in this one. That's gonna cost them I'm not gonna give that an A or a B. It gets a B from me.
Nice. Yeah, so this one, I put it on the C tier.
Oh, dang.
And honestly, it suffered at least partially due to being mostly missing.
Yeah.
I love the idea. It was a fun premise. I love the Toymaker character and the Toymaketor ship. Spoiler for a long, long time from now, I also loved the Toymaker's recent return in modern Doctor Who. That was fun. But the execution in this serial, I thought, was not the greatest, and partially that's due to it being missing, as I said. Partially that's due to them blowing the budget on the arc and having to like scale this one way back and change it up and stuff. There are also parts that are just kind of like loud and annoying, like Sergeant Rugg and Mrs. Wiggs like arguing and shouting and trashing the kitchen.
Gotta dock it a few points for, I don't know, gender norms? Let's just call it sexism, maybe.
So yeah, I was thinking about it and I was like, I partially like it, I partially didn't, maybe B tier, but then also like you, I remembered, oh yeah, this was the one that had casual and incidental use of a racial slur. So yeah,
you gotta factor that in.
Yeah, I put in my notes that with that being in it, it's lucky that I gave it as high as a C tier.
All right.
Gunfighters, on the other hand, for me, it was back up to B.
Cool.
I thought it was a fun serial. It was great historical characters to interact with. There were fun, bad American accents.
Yes.
Steven sings a song. I really enjoyed this serial a lot. I actually thought about making it A tier, but I decided it was just like too historically inaccurate about what actually happened at the OK Corral for me to give it an A, so B tier.
Fair enough. I'll be honest, I didn't care as much, I think, about the historical inaccuracy. I think the reason I went with a B tier is because even though it is really cool and fun and like I like a lot of what goes on, I actually watched this one. I enjoyed watching it, but the characters are kind of incidental to the plot, and they're more or less just there to observe what's going on.
That's
like
fair.
They have very little impact on the events, because it's sometimes fun to be like, oh, did the Doctor accidentally inspire Nero to burn down Rome by lighting that map on fire, type of thing. But in this one, there was kind of nothing about that. There's a little bit with Johnny Ringo, where Dodo saves Doc Holliday, but also I think historically Johnny Ringo wasn't actually at the OK Corral, or at least he wasn't. We don't, as far as we know, he wasn't in Deadwood at the time. So they just sort of threw that in there, and I think it really seemed like it was them stretching to try to give our heroes something to do to feel like they're impacting the plot. Because otherwise, it's just, here's the Earps, here's the Clantons, and they're going to have their shootout.
Yeah.
So B for that one.
That's fair.
And then the less technological people, and this, I said this earlier, and I still feel it. This one, I feel like it could easily have been a 2-episode serial.
Yeah.
I feel like they really stretched this one out, and you felt it. There was a lot of just go to the city, go to the caves, go back to the city. It was either in the first or the second episode where they're like, the real savages are the people in the city who are doing this to the less technological people. But and at that point, it's like, okay, we're done. We've got our moral, but we're still here for however many more episodes. So I just gave it a B.
Yeah, I think this was a good story on some level. Like, it's pretty well established at this point on The Doctor's Watcher that I enjoy stories of oppressed people, like breaking free of their oppression, which this had. Yeah. But it is pretty predictable.
Yeah.
And we do genuinely get worried for the Doctor for a little bit. That's kind of exciting to have like some actual potential danger after the Doctor's been drained of his energy and stuff. Mm-hmm. And there's the whole bit of Jano doing his Doctor impression, which is pretty fun. So I was kind of torn between A tier and B tier. I feel like this was another one that I was tempted to push up to A just because I've given so many Bs this season. Mm-hmm. But if I'm judging it just purely on its own, I think it's another B.
Cool. Fair enough. A lot of Bs.
And of course, our last serial of the season was The War Machines. And I actually did give this one an A.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I thought this was a good story. I thought it was fun to have a serial in like contemporary times.
With sci-fi elements. I think,
Yeah,
which is kind of
definitely.
interesting.
I liked how it sort of made you wonder right at the start if it was going to be about Daleks. It had like a line or two that kind of hinted at that, but then it was something completely unrelated.
Yeah.
It was kind of a fun little, and like the first time I watched it, the whole time I kept wondering like when the War Machines were going to secretly be a Dalek invention or something, and was kind of pleasantly surprised that that never actually happened.
I wonder if the audience in the 1960s was also hoping for that and tuning in, and the BBC were happily rubbing their hands together as they saw those ratings go up.
And, you know, mind control computers are always great, as are, like, machines of war terrorizing London. That's always a fun thing, whether they're Daleks or something else. I almost gave this an S tier, but then I remembered how they just like shipped Dodo off to a farm upstate off screen and we'll never see her again, and I downgraded it to A.
Yep. Yeah, this was I think it had fun bits. I love the hammer on the War Machines. Special shout out to that hammer. There were a couple of moments which I didn't love. I think the worst one was when they shipped off Dodo to the farm upstate. I also didn't love, I think that there was a bit you said where when Ben is first introduced early on, there's like some other guy who's like hitting on, either Dodo or Polly, and then like Ben chases him off, but then also does like some victim blamey comments.
Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of that.
What a shitty way to introduce a character. I also sort of felt like this one kind of broadcast this whole thing, like right from the start, that people were already kind of saying like, but what if the machines go bad? And I kind of like that they sort of treated just an inevitability, but then why drag it out for 3 more episodes?
Yeah, that's
so fair. For this one, I went ahead and gave it a B tier.
Well, this was a very B tier season.
Yes. I'll be honest, I mean, now that I've revealed all my ratings, and astute listeners may have noticed I just gave a bunch of Bs. Looking at this now, I do feel like maybe the arc deserved an A, and maybe I only gave it a B because I realized I'd given everything else a B, and I thought it would be funny if I just gave them all Bs, but I'll stick to it. It's Bs all around in season 3.
Yeah, just looking over my list, I guess I have 2 A's and 1 C, and all the rest are B's.
Fair enough.
Well, another season down.
I know, man. These are long seasons. We say this a lot, but it's good it's true. So, listeners, I hope that you've enjoyed another wrap-up episode. If you've stuck with us this long, please consider leaving us a rating and review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. So that's the same thing. iTunes is Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Indeed.
And tell a friend, tell multiple friends, tell them to listen to our show, because word of mouth is the best way to spread a podcast.
It is. I have just a very quick shout out, in fact, because of word of mouth spreading podcasts. I just learned recently that a couple different folks on a Discord server that I'm pretty active on are new or recent listeners of the Doctor's Watcher. So,
cool.
Quick shout out to Tav and to Professor Django. I think Tav said that the OK Corral was the first full serial he listened to, so I'm guessing he's basically listening to current episodes and might hear this shout out as it happens. I'm pretty sure Professor Django started at season 1, episode 1, so hopefully he makes it this far.
Yeah, I always get a little nervous if I hear that people start in the beginning because some of those early episodes were rough, but yeah. Cool. Well, happy to have more listeners. Hopefully you keep sticking around for even more seasons.
Indeed.
Thank you to Circuits23 for the awesome theme music that he made for us. Check him out on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. And Kyle, thank you for watching another season of Doctor Who and telling us all about it.
And thank you for listening to me talk all about another season of Doctor Who.
And thank you, listeners, for listening to me, listen to Kyle talk about, watch and talk about. Thank you for listening to our show.
Indeed.
We'll see you in, is it now 1 week?
1 week for season 4, episode 1.
Season 4. We'll see if Ben and Polly stick around. See how far we can take this pollen ship. All right. See you then, listeners.
Bye.